Mm-mm. What's going on, everybody? This is Dan the Real Estate Man, and this is Money Mondays, where I talk about everything money. And before we get started, I want to let everybody know here that is watching this video or will be watching this video that this Wednesday, my guest that I'm bringing on now, Kirnon, will be hosting, along with Bragg Investors, will be hosting a free class on land and multifamily development. Land and multifamily development. So if you're interested in learning about how to develop land, how to figure out multifamily properties ground up, this is a free class. This Wednesday, you have to go over to at Bragg Investors, click the links in that bio, and register for that event. This is going to be a great event. That event on Wednesday is free. It's going to be a virtual event. It's going to be via Zoom. And then this upcoming Saturday, we're going to have a hard hat tour and do a site visit to a 37 unit ground up project. That's 37 unit ground up project, hard hat tour this Saturday. So if you're interested in going to the free meeting this Wednesday on land and multifamily development, go over to at Bragg Investors, click the link in the bio and register for that free meeting. The hard hat tour is $39.99 if you're a non-premium Bragg member. Super cheap. Walk through, learn about how to develop land and the process of building a large multi-family property. All right, cool. Let me do this real fast. I see you there. Let me just see a couple of people. What's going on, everybody? Say hi to a couple of folks. Blessings, Dan. Love to see all your progress and amazing work. Appreciate that. How's everybody feeling out there? How's the first quarter of your year going? What questions do you guys all have about money? So the person that I'm going to bring up is, again, somebody I've talked about this many times. Is your network is your net worth, and this individual is definitely a part of my network. One of the folks that I lean on when I have questions, and I like to think that I do the same for him as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring him up. Money Monday started, but as we get this thing started, I want to know, what questions do you got? What questions do you all have? What questions around the economy, around real estate? What questions do you guys all have? What's going on, Kirnon?
Hey Dan, what's going on? How are you?
Oh man, I am living the dream, sir.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, you know that, like, that's my catchphrase at this point in time.
Listen,
Um,
you gotta say it until it comes to fruition all the time.
Absolutely. And I tell folks, man, it's like it's more of a mindset thing. You have to teach your mind to be strong, because I think one of the biggest misconceptions with real estate and investing in business is that somehow things just go well almost all the time, right? And you go out here and you just knock it out the park, and it's like, no,
No, not
that's not what happens. And you have to make your mind stronger than your emotions, and just be able to weather different storms. Um, but I definitely want to. What I like to do is kind of let people know like how I met folks. I think I've known you now for what, about 2 3 years.
Yeah, I'd say at least 3 years, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, at least 2 years. Wow, that's going by pretty quickly. And we first met because you had reached out to me on some zoning things.
Yep. Yep.
And I quickly realized, I was like, man, like, you're doing great things. I put you in contact with some folks that I know that I thought would, possibly be able to help you out and kind of help you along. And just along the way, we we have created a friendship,
Yep.
even outside of business. And like I was saying earlier, you're one of the folks that I will reach out to if I have questions, right? So when I talk about having people around you that are smarter than yourself, that's important, right? Even if it's not in every aspect, if they're smarter in certain areas, that's super important, right? And there are certainly parts of the business that you just have much more experience in. So I definitely appreciate you for that.
Appreciate you
If
too.
if you wouldn't mind just giving folks just a bit of a background about who you are and how you got started in real estate.
Sure. Kirnon Joaquim. I got started in real estate when I was 22. I was working for Verizon Communications in my earlier years. Obviously, just young, making money, working overtime, and wanted to obviously put that money to work for me. So I bought my first property when I was 22, and probably like a year and a half later, sold it. Think made 60,000, and then just from that process, really just started rolling into other projects. So I bought my first multifamily property when I was 24. It was, as my wife would say, we walked in the building and you could see the sky. There was no roof. Um, so that was interesting. And one of the things that I learned throughout that process is that contractors, sometimes you have good contractors, bad contractors, and learning through that process, being that young, you figure that guys are professional, they're going to do what they're supposed to do, and that wasn't the case. So that was a learning experience, just kind of going through contractors and realizing a lot of times they were just, they were getting the jobs and subbing it out to subcontractors. And I started up a contracting company out in New York, and we did work, for myself personally, for other folks. We did some work for Habitat for Humanity, and really along those lines, still doing that work. I still maintain a regular 9 to 5 job, and that has, having those instances and that experience doing Habitat, doing multifamily projects, it's kind of led me into the work that I do now, into the multifamily development.
Got you. Got you. So what was it early on that gave you the insight to say, hey, like I'm making money now. I should invest into some asset, because my mindset certainly wasn't there. We have a similar story, except for it was my mom was like, "Hey, you should invest." So, what was it? Was that led you to make those moves early on?
Also, I would say one of my friends, a really good friend of mine, her mother was a realtor as well, and so I bought a property from her in New York and Long Island. Probably when I was 23, I bought a single family house from her, and she always just preached to me and even her kids, like, "Hey, invest long term. Your property values are going to increase, and it was just a great way to make your money work, for you essentially."
Gotcha. Got you. So you had someone that kind of put that bug in
Yeah.
your
Yeah,
ear early.
yeah, definitely. And honestly, growing up, my mother, she never purchased a house for herself. Like, she purchased a co-op, and she was comfortable. But I always saw when like her sisters who bought houses, the same time where she bought that co-op, their valuation or their value of their properties increased significantly over from what her co-op property was. So you saw that dynamic as well.
I see. What is a co-op? I'm not really sure what that is.
A co-op is basically it's an apartment building, but that apartment building issues shares to the buyers of each apartment. So if you
Mhm.
have 1,000 shares, you have 10 apartments, so each apartment has 1,000 shares, and so there's a regular maintenance that they pay maintenance dues every single month. And in New York City, a lot of places, but mostly in New York City, is pretty prevalent. And they have it also in Philly and other places. But
Mhm.
that's kind of how it has worked throughout the times.
So do you have a deed? Do you have ownership?
It's more like you own shares. You own shares of that building. So it's almost like a corporate structure. It's a corporate structure. It's like you're buying shares of that building, and the
Mhm.
shares of that building, it entitles you to shares of the apartment that you actually have.
Mhm. So what happens if you pass away? Can you pass that on to somebody else? Do your shares go to somebody else?
Yeah, the shares get transferred to the estate. You go through the regular pro I'm forgetting the word right now. Probate. You go
You
through the regular
you go
probate.
probate.
Yeah,
Mhm.
unless you obviously transfer that into a trust prior, or you kind of just dictated how those shares are going to be distributed at your passing. But it works very, very similar to standard property.
I- Is there is there any advantage to a co-op over just like say like a condo where you own the space where it's deeded?
Not as much. It really isn't. With a condo, you actually own the condo itself or the unit, whereas in a co-op, you do not own the unit. You own shares. So it's technically real property, and technically it isn't. On paper, it's treated as real property, but the reality is you've bought ownership in a company that owns the building.
Hmm. So why would somebody do that versus just buying a condo or something like that?
I think a lot of times it's the corporate structure. Like when you do a condo, like in New York, you have to go through like the attorney general, and there's disclaimers and legal fees and things of that nature that has to present itself when you start up that entity. So I think setting up a condo cost wise is just a lot more money at the beginning, and that that's the main reasons why some folks created condos as opposed to co-ops.
Got you. Okay. Yeah, I've always been sort of interested because it's always a word I that I hear used a lot up there. I never quite understood like how that all worked.
Yeah,
So
but
go ahead.
traditionally, co-ops, increase in their value a lot less than condos or obviously single family or multifamily properties.
Yeah, and I would imagine that the increase is in the overall
Right.
corporation and not in the individual units.
Correct.
And
Yep.
so I guess there is a pro rata increase or like as the companies worth more, then the are worth more.
Right. Correct. Yep.
And can you sell shares can you sell
Yeah,
those
you
shares?
definitely can sell the shares, but when you sell the shares, you have to sell it in its entirety. If you own 1,000, you have to sell 1,000.
Ah, I see. Okay, so
Yeah.
you can't raise money by like
Yeah.
got you.
Yeah.
Okay. That would actually be pretty cool. So what brought you when did you first start to invest in Philly?
I worked out of Philly probably by 2009, 2010. I worked in Philly for a few months. Always thought it was a great opportunity based on where the price points were. But I didn't buy my first property in Philly until 2016. So when I bought that property in 2016, I actually purchased that property under Home Path. So Home
Okay.
Path is where obviously Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, that's how they distribute some of their bank owned properties. So I bought it through Home Path, and pretty much the neighborhoods that I'm focused on has been Germantown and Mount Airy. And just honestly, just the value that has presented itself has been amazing. So that first property I bought in Germantown, subsequently I've bought both sides. You know, it was a twin. I bought the other side of the twin, and I bought the property adjacent to that as well. So now I think I've amassed probably those properties sat on a fairly large lot to where that lot is over 1.5 acres in total.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the reasons why I kind of bought that is looking future down the line, we can actually create a PUD development, and possibly with zoning approval, of course, we can create up to 17 homes at the rear of those properties.
And you said a
Yeah.
PUD, and what is a PUD?
If I'm not mistaken, I believe it's a planned urban development. So,
Okay.
yeah, instead of you parceling, so it's almost like a whole HOA association. And once you have a PUD development set up, there's a HOA process. You know, you can obviously take care of the lawn and things of that nature, and everyone that's in as part of that PUD, they pay those dues monthly, essentially.
I see. So that actually brings me to a really interesting point, and something I don't even know. What was the transition? So the first home that you bought was that a buy and hold property that was a rental?
It was a buy and hold. We had plans to move into Philly a long time ago, so it was buy and hold where we were going to renovate it and move into that property.
Mm-hmm. And when did you start to get into the idea of, hey, you know, these properties have large lots. There's something else that I could do with this property. What introduced you to those concepts of looking at the zoning, looking at the lot sizes, and figuring that you could do something else with that property and with the
Yeah,
lots?
I think, I've always looked at, we always in real estate, we always talk about the highest and best use, right? So, that's always been something that's rung in my brain at all times.
Mhm.
And so looking at lots and really consulting first an architect, kind of getting a brief schematic of, hey, what can I build here? And based on that conversation with the architect, there are times we have conversations with a zoning attorney and things of that nature, really kind of to flush out to see, is this possible? What are the barriers? What's the risk, and whether or not, this is just, is this a project that's viable in terms of, whether it's a subdivision or PUD and things of that nature.
Mhm. So was it that somebody introduced you to that concept, or it was already? How did you even just, because it's not something that I'd say, because I've met people who've been invested for a long time. They've never taken that step of, I'm going to develop this area. They're just thinking, hey, I'm going to fix this property up. I mean, how did you get introduced to those
I
ideas?
think, honestly, just seeing it happening. So there was a property, I would say, down the block from where I lived. It was a single family home, and then I remember saying, "Hey, that looks like it's a really good sized lot." And then probably you saw that home went on the market, it got sold, and then maybe 6 months later, so the developer actually, they tore that building down and they built five homes on that lot.
Mm.
And that was just inspiring to see. Obviously, you had the thought process, I had the thought process, but obviously not having the skill set that early in life, nor the finances, but to see someone do it, and obviously you see that it's possible, and people are doing it quite often and being really successful at it.
Got you. So seeing other investors do it
Yeah,
made you realize, okay, there is a bigger play here,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So what was that process like? Obviously, okay, I'm seeing there that this is possible. What steps did you take to learn about how do I turn this home into multiple properties? Like, what was that like?
First, you got to do your homework, right? So looking at, whether it's you going into Philadelphia Atlas, looking at Philadelphia Atlas, looking at the zoning, RSA 3, RSA 5, what is the minimum lot size, right? You have to look through what's the minimum lot size? What are the frontage requirements, rear yard, side yard requirements, and really start kind of mapping that out on paper if you wanted to. So, you may have RSA 5, and let's say you have 100 foot wide by 100 foot, 100 by 100, but you can parcel that into 14-foot wide lots, and then you can say, hey, I can get X amount of homes on this parcel. But that process just entails, first, you get the idea, you get a zoning attorney, they make sure that, okay, this is something that's viable. Then you have to get a survey done. Then they start the process to where they do a subdivision through a survey. And once
Mm-hmm.
that survey subdivision is done, it goes to the survey district for approval. Once the survey district approves that, then it really gets into where you're submitting to L&I, for them to review the zoning documents, because now you're going in for a zoning on each parcel individually. Then they have to do a zoning approval, and then once that's completed, the deed has to be um, the deed has to be filed, and then they create OPA numbers for each individual parcel that you create. That's like a super short version of the process, but a process like that can take anywhere between 6 to 8 months.
Got you. So it sounds like you were curious and you looked into some of it, just just on your own, kind of checking out Atlas, checking out the zoning guides, which I recommend people do. And one of the things that I say to investors, not just me, but it's well known that as investors we get paid to solve problems, right? And if you can, a lot of times where investors go wrong is that they don't have, in my opinion, um, they can only see what's
Right.
there and not what could be.
Yeah.
And generally, the real money, the big money, is in what could be,
Yep.
and in highest and best use. And where that starts out at is understanding zoning. And you don't have to be a zoning expert, but you should have some baseline understanding of what could be done. Because like you said, if the person's selling you their single family home or their twin, the average individual is not thinking about the lot size and you tearing it down so they couldn't even think to even sell it based off of that principle. They're selling it based off of what they see and what they know. And in my experience, most real estate agents don't even know that, and so they can
They don't.
they can't.
A lot of folks, yeah, even real estate agents, they don't see it fully. There have been projects where even, there are times that I tell the real estate agent, hey, check to see if this person bought it with an FHA loan, right? If they bought it with an FHA loan, I could see if I can assume that loan at a lower interest payment, at lower interest rate than what the current market is. And a lot of folks just don't know that, unfortunately. So just being in the right circles,
Yeah.
having a great network of people that you can reach out to and ask questions, it's
So,
priceless, honestly.
so that brings up a good point. So let's kind of talk about that. So when you say that you could assume the loan, uh, what does that mean? Right. So for everybody listening to this live.
Right. So let's say someone had a $300,000 mortgage. They acquired the property, let's say 3 years ago, and they bought it with an FHA loan. Let's say they put 5% down, so that's 15,000. Their mortgage would have been 285. So they have a loan of 285,000 at, let's say, 3% interest.
Mhm.
FHA allows a new buyer of that property to assume the loan that's outstanding presently on the property. So if someone, 285, let's say they obviously owned it for 3 years. Let's say they paid down $10,000 on their loan. So technically their loan balance is 275. If they were selling the property for 350, there's a delta of 75,000, right? So that delta of 75,000, that person can assume the FHA loan for 275, but they still have to make up that delta of 75,000.
Mhm.
So based on market value and things of that nature, someone could do a piggyback loan or second loan or HELOC on top of that loan and still get pretty close to where whether or not they were going to put 5% down or 10% down themselves, but
Mhm.
they're assuming that debt at a 3% interest as opposed to a 7% interest where the market is presently.
Yeah, and this to me is where being a knowledgeable investor comes in, because knowledge just gives you more
Yeah.
options, right? And so, um, um, somebody looking at that deal may not even understand that's something that they could do, and maybe they could work out a second owner finance,
Yeah.
on that balance, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that the owner is going to take it, but you have different options that other buyers say won't necessarily have,
Yeah.
or they won't ask. So like being a knowledgeable investors and having different strategies of buying real estate, right? I think is a characteristic uh that is underrated.
Yeah, absolutely. Even when it came to FHA, I bought my first property. One of the other properties I bought, it was a three-family with a commercial space. A lot of people didn't know before that you can actually purchase, use FHA loan to purchase a property that has commercial.
Mhm.
The caveat to that is that the commercial space cannot be more than 50% of the entire building square footage.
Mhm.
And you could still buy that type of property. You can do a conversion. You can convert it to all residential if you wanted to. You
Mhm.
have a lot of options, but it doesn't cost you a lot of money to start. I always tell folks I started off buying things with a FHA loan. You take
Mhm.
advantage, allows you to get in early because a lot of folks say, "Hey, I got to save the money," and they never get to a point where they actually save the money to purchase a property.
Mhm.
But take advantage of the programs that are out there. At least
Mhm.
you are, at least your property is increasing as the market is increasing, and that does everything for you.
Yeah, I think that's the strategy that a lot of our generation was raised on. And you learn quickly that saving is the most the most inefficient way to get things done. Right? It takes a long time to save up money. I mean, sometimes it's good, especially if you're making enough money. But if you're just starting off and you're talking to people about buying properties, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy these turnkey properties. It's like, okay, if you do that, that means every single time, generally speaking, you're going to have to save up money. All right. Is that your best? How long is that going to take you? Like the average American, they're not making that much money. They have so much left over that, it would take a really long time. So a lot of these other strategies, like the Burr strategy, or coupling that with business funding or partnerships, or just understanding how to get into deals like owner finance deals, I found are much more efficient ways than saving up cash,
Yeah,
because most people just don't make enough money. That is the majority of Americans. There are very few people who are making that much money. When what I've seen is that happens as you build your career. Once you after you may start a few businesses, or you have a lot of rentals. You have way more income coming in than you have bills. Then you could start doing things like
yeah,
that if you wanted to.
yeah. And of course, I think sometimes people forget. I always recommend buy a multifamily if you can. One of your first investments should be a multifamily because at least the rental income, it helps you qualify for that mortgage. So someone may say, "Oh, it's a large mortgage, I can't afford it," based on what they're earning. But you may have, if it's a duplex, triplex, quad, you can count that rental income, and that helps you qualify, and it gets you started right away.
Yeah, and you said that you did a house hacking in a mixed use property.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of building was it?
It was
Was it a triplex with a retail on the bottom,
Yeah,
or what was the makeup?
it was a triplex with a retail, and what we ended up doing, we ended up converting it just to a triplex. We took the commercial component because that street didn't have a lot of commercial activity, but we were allowed to convert it just to keep it as a three family, and we just made it that one unit a duplex. So the commercial first
Okay.
floor and the second floor, we made that a duplex and made it work.
Got
So one of my yeah
got you.
one
Got
of
you.
my first one of our probably my second property purchase, coming from New York. I think we probably bought that property for 400,000. It's well worth over $2 million now.
Wow.
That's
And
buying in
that's
the
the
right
power.
neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean that is amazing, and that's the power. And I think most people get caught up in the timing of it, or maybe the fear and the not knowing. But because you took action, you have a property that's now worth 4 or 5 times what you purchased it for. I mean, what advice, if any, would you give somebody, especially out here now in this market, right? Because I talk about house house hacking a lot. Like, what advice would you give them?
Personally, I think, a lot of, and personally for me, is that you have to make sacrifices, right? A lot of folks want to get to where they want to get to, but they're not willing to sacrifice. So you have to make a sacrifice. Sometimes you have to convince the wife or the girlfriend, hey, we're going to have to live in this two-family home for X amount of years, right? Until that property value goes up where you can refinance, take some cash out and use that for your own personal home. But
Mm,
you have to be able to put the sacrifice in and put in the work. Like it, there are a lot of smart people in this world, but if you actually work harder than them, you are going to be successful. It's the determination and the work that you put in, and you got to just have perseverance through it all. There's always going to be ups and downs, face tons of ups and
mm,
downs, right? And that's just kind of part of the process, and things that you may be in a situation where you find it super difficult, but that difficulty, it really just prepares you for later on. And you never know, like, you in that moment you don't think about that later on, but a lot of things have happened to me. It has
mhm.
prepared me for where I am today.
Absolutely. You said something I think is super important that I want to circle back to, which, quite frankly, I think is what stops a lot of people. We are conditioned, but this is what I believe, that we are conditioned to go out and buy that beautiful home, right? As soon as to show the world I've made it, right? As
Yeah,
soon as you graduate, as soon as you get that good job, you go out there and you buy that home. And in my opinion, that's exactly that's what employers
of
want.
course. Yeah,
Like, they want that because now you have what I call a beautiful prison.
yeah,
And if you can resist that and say, hey, you know what? I don't care what it looks like, right? Because after that original, or after the initial, oh, this is a beautiful home, blah, 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 blah. All right. Like that's going to come and go, but you got to keep
yeah,
paying that mortgage, right? But if you could find a way to live below your means, right? And find a way to lower your largest expense, which in most cases is your living expense. That's going to set you up way better than most other
yeah, of
people.
course.
But I'm finding most
Yeah,
people just cannot do that. Like, I've had this conversation a lot of times, but I don't know, that draw of wanting to just show people that they made it, to me, is much more important than wanting to be financially free. Have you seen that? I mean, what's your experience that
Oh,
with that?
that's definitely the case. Listen, I would say I've driven the great cars and put down tons of money buying a car and things of that nature, and you realize at some point it doesn't make a difference, right? You're still getting to
Yeah.
point A and point B, but putting in the sacrifice and buying a fixer upper. A lot of folks don't want to buy a fixer upper, but in my opinion, that's where you get the greatest value, right? Because you
Mhm,
can
mhm,
negotiate a better deal because you know all the things that it needs. Even when on a fixer upper, you get through inspections, you can still, nudge the seller a little bit more and say, hey, this is wrong, this is wrong.
mhm,
When, the reality is you knew you were gonna reno the whole thing anyway. Like you knew you were going to
mhm,
do a new electrical, but those are things that it's all negotiation. When you're negotiating against the seller in order to get you to where you need to be, it saves you a couple of dollars.
mhm, mhm. Um, yeah. I think that the road to financial freedom is a lot simpler than what people make it. Um, now it's simpler. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's simpler. It's you um, you keep your lifestyle less than what you make, and you constantly invest. Number one, in knowledge and in assets. It's somewhere along the way that the draw of what you want now, it exceeds what you want for your future. And so people can't get over that hump. And so they get stuck. And, I've met a lot of people who make a lot of money, but they're still technically week to week.
Yeah,
I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. People think it's like that is a minimum wage thing. I think it's more of a mindset
yeah,
thing, right? They
definitely.
have no assets. If they get laid off, they're toast. In fact, they're actually worse, in my opinion. They're worse because if you're making, I won't say only, if you're making $50,000 a year, you can get two not so great
But
jobs,
make
and
it
you'll
up.
make 50 grand a year.
Right.
If you're making 400 grand a year,
You got a different
you're not
problem.
just
Right.
going out and finding a $400,000
Yeah.
job, but you built a $400,000 lifestyle, right?
Yep.
And so it's amazing how many high wage earners I talk to that are just very stressed because they haven't plotted a path towards financial freedom. I mean, what separated you from that? Because we didn't really get into what you do, but I know you have a really good job. Um, what kind of kept you away from falling into that trap? And I'll throw a second question on there. There was a big push for years for everybody. Basically, like if you had a job, you was a sucker.
Yeah. 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 Listen, we all
Sucker.
feel it, but I
Yeah.
still, yeah.
So what kept you from falling into those two traps?
I think personally having a job, what I did realize at some point, when with getting regular loans, DSCR loans, I think banks love it that you actually have a regular, W-2 employment. They know that you're not relying solely on, the flip or the rental income that you're producing. So I think, especially as I started doing larger and larger deals,
Mm,
that helped, get me to the finish line on a lot of projects and just getting approved on a lot of financing deals.
mm, yeah. I want to talk about the mindset. I mean, you seem to do increasingly larger projects. What's can you talk to us about the mindset that it takes to just kind of keep leveling up? Like what are some of the challenges, and then how do you overcome those challenges?
I think in terms of leveling up, for me, I started, obviously I did a lot of renovation. Then I started moving into single family construction, new construction, um, and one of the deals that we're going to go through on Wednesday with Bragg Investors is how I took a lot that had a parking, a auto garage on it, right? And that lot I think was probably a little bit over 15,000 square feet, and how I did a subdivision on that property, and I made 4 lots out of it. And one of the things I'm going to show the group on Wednesday is actually, believe it or not, I closed that deal with under $150,000 on a $7.5 million property, and
Wow.
um, just to show the play and how that happened, and what's possible.
Hold,
Um,
hold on. I feel like you're setting me up for the perfect plug here for everybody watching this. Kirnon is going to be speaking to the Bragg investors. If you guys want to check out Bragg Investors and register for the Wednesday meeting, which is absolutely free, which he just told you he's going to go through the process of how he picked this lot up and got into a $7.5 million project with under $150,000, right? There's no excuse. We've, as far as I'm concerned, we have taken away every obstacle and every excuse that you could possibly have. It's virtual, so you can watch it from your couch. Right? It's free, so you don't have to pay any money, right? But what you should be doing is paying attention to people who are actually doing it. This isn't somebody who is a Instagram guru, even though he's one of the guys that should be, because he's actually doing it, right? So if you have not registered for the free event this Wednesday, after this live, shoot over to @Bragg Investors. Click the links, and it will send you over to register for Wednesday's class. And then on Saturday, we're going to be doing a hard hat tour, which means we are going to be able to walk this project. You're going to be able to walk the project and see exactly what Kirnon has done, which is amazing, right? And we haven't even gotten to the 3 modular homes that you built, but it's a great opportunity to just hands-on see what's being done. Fact is, kind of some of the things I wish I could have experienced early on. So if you haven't done it, as soon as this is over, go over to @Bragg Investors. I have it pinned to the top of this live. Sign up for the free meeting on Wednesday. We're having a hard hat tour on Saturday, which is only $39.99. That's like less than a decent lunch. So stop playing. Come on out, learn, and see what it looks like for a real live project, and learn about land and multifamily development. Thanks for that setup, Kirnon. Appreciate you.
No problem. And listen, I also just want to tell everyone, it's super important to always have great relationships with everyone. And I'll tell the story about how certainly got a lot of denials on loans, but going through different banks and credit unions to get loans. We've been denials, but you learn throughout that process. And one of my friends that I worked at a former job with, he ended up working for Salesforce in North Carolina, and I was discussing the project with him, and one of his clients was an IT guy at a bank locally in New Jersey, and he reached out to his counterpart that was IT related. That person reached out to someone internally at their bank and said, "Hey, I got a great deal, great recommendation," and that's how the connection happened, and that's how I actually got that deal through that specific bank. So always great to continue to have great relationships and be of value to everyone.
Absolutely. I mean, this is something, and people probably sick of hearing me say it, because they hear me say it every meeting, every live, every presentation, because it cannot be overstated, I should say. You should be leading with value. You should always be leading with value. You shouldn't be leading with the "can I pick your brains?" You shouldn't be leading with trying to extract every room you go into, just extract things. You should be adding value first. right? And those things pay dividends, and not always in ways that you necessarily see them coming, and it's not always directly through the people that you're speaking to. Sometimes it's through them,
Yeah.
right? It's not necessarily with them. So that is super important. Is number one, you should be showing up at these events. So you should be a member of like Bragg and similar groups. But it's not only about being a member, it's about being active and about finding ways when you see somebody that you want to emulate, right? If you see what Kirnon is doing, you're like, yo, he's doing like I love what he's doing. Like, it's super dope. No, I like his vibe. Let me find a way that I can add value. And it's not always real estate, right? It could be anything, right? And just if you pay attention, if you ask really good questions, I think that you can figure out how you can add value to people's lives.
Yeah, and I think, asking, obviously, getting mentorship, it helps greatly. But, if you see someone doing something that you enjoy, you want to be part of, you ask, hey, how can I be part of, or what do you need help with? Investors, real estate investors, they all need help with something. And,
Mhm.
for you to just walk that path that someone else is walking, it just makes it so much easier for you. Instead of, listen, I knocked my head 1,000 times, right? But if I had someone that I could just follow, it would be so much easier. So we've given people opportunity. I've given people opportunity. Hey, it's not rocket science. Come
Mhm.
walk through the project. Come see what we're doing. I'll explain to you what I'm doing. I'm sharing that information. Like, it's a no-brainer for me, because at the end of the day, you want everyone to be that's around you. I want everyone to win. I don't want to be the only one that's winning. I need everyone to win with me.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. But again, I think not everybody has that spirit.
Yeah.
It is, I think that is a prosperity mindset. And there are a lot of people that have a scarcity mindset. So until they get out of that mindset, they can't even understand it. Like, what you mean? Like, like, I want to be the man, and everybody has to look up to me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you that will get old,
Mhm.
right? You want people that's on your level or above. So when you have questions, when you want to troubleshoot things, when you just want to just knock around
Yeah.
ideas, if everybody's looking up to you, you can't do that,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
don't, or you're going to want to act like you know everything so that they can't even help you out. So it's just not, I think a lot of this always comes down to mindset. I found mindset is the first thing. You got to get these technical skills, right? Everything Kirnon was talking about, all these resources and the know-how, but you can't outwork a bad mindset.
Mhm.
So, as much as you want to work on these things and get in these rooms, you have to work on mindset. I mean, has there been any mindset um, shifts that you've had to go through to get to where you are now?
I think for me, there are times when it's difficult, right? And for me anyway, you want the help, or you're looking for the help, but the reality is, like, you are the help. Like, you have to. There's no one that's saving you, right? Like, there's no one here to save you. You kind of, you fall down, you get back up, and you keep pushing, because that's gonna make you successful. Like, how hard are you willing to go after it and continue to push until you get to where you need to get to?
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, and I think you get that through, you mentioned this earlier, and I had wanted to kind of come back to it, is going through difficult things and getting through the other side of it.
Yeah.
And really, no matter how it all comes out, because not everything's going to come out great,
Yeah.
right? But you got through it.
Yep.
You figured it out. You didn't evaporate. You didn't break down, right? And I think that most people's fear is failure, and that somehow that's the worst thing ever. And I don't even like to use the word failure, because I don't look at those things as failures,
It's an
right? But it's
experience.
just, It's just how you have to kind of explain things. Yeah, it's just what it is. It is an experience. And if you look at it and you say, like, what can I learn from it? This is what you said earlier that I wanted to come back to is like everything that you've had happen to you. You like it happened for a reason, or you understand why it happened. And I agree with that. Almost everything that to me, whether business or even personal, that I thought was the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, there was a lesson in it, right? There was a real tangible lesson. And I'm not going to act like it was a lesson like in that moment, like, oh, this is great. It's a lesson.
Yeah, yeah. It's not, and
I
you
was
feel it.
like, no,
Yeah,
this shit sucks, right?
yeah,
but but once I got out of that and I could reflect and I could see maybe it put me on another course or it made me see things for what it was. It like took some, it kind of like it. You'd be surprised that some things just like really open your eyes. Like, yo, how did I not see
yeah.
that? It's like, well, because it's just because your mindset wasn't there. I don't know if that's been your experience. Has that kind of been how those things have worked out for you?
Yeah, it absolutely has been my experience. There are a lot of times that, whether or not just difficulty in dealing with contractors or realizing that what you thought in your brain what the contractor was supposed to do, but you never verbalized it. So like my learning experience from those moments just helped me or made me do better contracts or do better leveling with those subs to make sure like we are all on the same page and if they're all bidding things exactly the way it should be bid,
Mm-hmm.
so there's going to be less change orders. So late when you're doing a large project, especially what I'm doing, you want to limit the amount of change orders. So you really try to spell as much out as possible in your leveling sheets, and we'll go through that in a meeting. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, the other day I had a plumber on a project. He's running PEX lines, right? He's running the PEX lines from a manifold, mana block system to, let's say the vanity. And, let's say his PEX line is short. He has 100 feet, but it's a 150-foot run. So he's going to join that PEX line. But in how I look at that, when you join that PEX line, that's a failure point, or that could potentially be a failure point 3 years from now. And if that's a failure point and that fails, now that affects the tenant that's in that unit, right? Now you got to
Mm-hmm.
get someone to fix the plumbing issue. They have to patch the wall back. It inconveniences the tenant. But if in my leveling sheet, if I had just said, hey, it needs to be home run lines from the mana block to that fixture, then I'm not even having that conversation with that plumber, right? He knows
Mm-hmm.
exactly what it needs to be. And it's something so insignificant. It may cost the plumber an extra $10 or whatever it is. It's not a lot because it's the PEX is pretty cheap,
Mm-hmm.
but it can cause you so much. So many other people have to get involved when that person made a decision to make that change instead of running it as a home run line. So those are just learning experiences that you kind of go through and you learn. Hey, you want to level it out as best as possible,
Mm-hmm.
and leveling sheets, and really limit the amount of change orders that you have on projects.
Yeah, I'm super excited about the meeting on Wednesday because I know there's going to be a lot of great information on buying land, on on the development side of things, on underwriting the deals, on 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 the construction side of things. I mean, it's going to be a lot of touch points. I mean, things for people to learn.
Yeah.
So again, if you have not already, go over to @Bragg Investors. I have pinned it to the top of this live. Register for Wednesday's class where Kirnon's going to be going over his project now, where he's building. It's a 37 unit,
Yeah,
right?
it's a 37 unit with one commercial.
30. Okay, so 38
Yes. Yep.
units and three modular homes that he that he's building on what was once one parcel, and that you then subdivided, and now you have all these different. So I mean, it's like you got to be kidding me. Like if you're not on this meeting, then you got to look at you,
Yeah.
right? That's really
Yeah.
you got to ask yourself, like, am I serious, or am I just saying that I want this? Like, it does not. You don't gain this much access to, and especially genuine, real people like Kirnon that's actually doing it. And there's no fluff. And then again, Saturday there is going to be the hard hat tour.
Yep.
I know we're at the top of the hour, man. You want to let people know how they can follow you and what you have going on?
Sure. You guys can follow me at Cap Development. I'm really not that great at posting, but I'll try to get better at it. I don't even post my projects. I kind of try to stay really low key and just keep churning.
Yeah. Hey, listen, if I got anything to do with it, guys like you, Brian Wise, Jonathan, like I definitely want to see you guys post some more. But I get it; everybody has their own style. But you guys just have so much information, and you're genuine guys, and you're authentic. You're actually doing this, and I feel like, if folks are going to be out here following anybody, it should be folks that are, actually getting things done. So again, one last time, this Wednesday, Bragg is going to be having their monthly meeting on land and multifamily development. Kirnon is going to be going over his current project, which he's building a 38-unit ground-up building and 3 modular homes. Absolutely free meeting, but you have to register. And then that Saturday, we're going to do a hard hat tour of the site. So thanks again, Kirnon, man. I really appreciate you coming on, and have a great rest of your trip.
Thank you. And I wish, obviously, looking forward to see everyone, obviously, on the meeting on Wednesday and on Saturday.
All
Certainly,
right.
would love to walk everyone through the construction process, quality and things of that nature. I think everyone's going to have a great time.
All right. Sounds great, brother.
All
I'll
right.
talk to you soon.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Bye.